So nearly a week ago, guys, I said that I wanted to challenge some things toward Bungie. I wanted to challenge Bungie on some of their mindsets they have. And specifically, about almost a month ago, there was a podcast released by Crucible Radio. I'll link it in the description below, guys. You can go check it out for yourself. But essentially, it's Bungie Talks. They had Josh Hammerick, they had Tocom, they had Jon Weisnewski on there as well. And all of these guys were pretty much giving their perspective on why they did what they did in Crucible when it comes to Destiny 2. Now, we'll be doing a lot of referencing to the podcast, and of course, a lot of these answers that they gave were all really good answers, but essentially, I want to break them down because, you know, as a consumer of this game, as a streamer and a YouTuber that mains this game, there is some red flags that I have to say that were raised when listening to this podcast. At the hour and 4 minute mark, Josh Hammerick then talks about how he was so happy with the balance they struck in Destiny 2 when it was presented. They stated that they never accomplished this in Destiny 1, but D2's PvP at launch was what they were most proud of. Now, there is some things I have to ask. Because PvP, was it balanced? Go. My answer, no. Because whenever Uriel's Gift and Antiope are the two most optimal weapons in PvP, it is not balanced. And that was essentially the launch of D2. So my questions is this. Number one, when you state that the game was super balanced, was it balanced from a 1v1 perspective? Because here's what we come to realize about D2. The most optimal strategy, no matter where you are, no matter if you're in trials, quick play, competitive rank, whatever the case may be, the most optimal strategy is to deathball with your teammates, always playing off your teammates. And my second question, was the game balanced from a random rolls perspective? You know, I don't know when the plug was pulled on random rolls. Maybe that was something way in advance, before any of this was cooked up, before Crucible was cooked up to be 4v4. You know, all I'm asking is, we got to a situation in the beginning of D1 where things like Modern Multi-Tool were really strong. You had things like Uriel's Gift, that was the optimal choice for all engagements, even mid to long range engagements. You have Antiope, which is still the king SMG, and Last Hope was stupid nasty as well. So there's a lot of guns I felt like could have dealt with Antiope, could have dealt with Uriel's Gift, and even Modern Multi-Tool. The problem was you had so many shit static roll weapons that you couldn't get a well-rounded, well-rolled gun to deal with those guns. So those are my questions whenever we talk about balance. Now, they always seem to refer to D1 as kind of being like the area that they lost the battle in, that they never could accomplish what they wanted to accomplish in D1. And let me go ahead and say this about D1. At the end of D1, end of year 3, the 4 things that I did not like about D1. Number 1, I didn't like that Icebreaker existed in the no special situation. You know, if they were going to remove special ammo in January like they did, they should not have brought Icebreaker back. That was a poor choice. Sidearms were really strong, but they were mainly strong whenever you got rid of special across the board. So sidearms, essentially, in that situation, I just felt like in order to really rein it in was you just needed to give it a range reduction. And then, of course, sticky grenades were also extremely nasty as well. But again, let me go ahead and say this about sticky grenades. Yes, you could land a sticky on someone and get a one-hit kill. I truly believe, though, the thing that made sticky grenades way more op than it initially was the grenade throwing gauntlets. You know, if you got some gauntlets that gave you extra grenade throw distance, that's what made sticky grenades super nasty. That aim assist value that seemed to stay with this sticky grenade all the way up to 30 something meters, that was because of those gauntlets. That didn't just happen by accident. The fourth thing was exotics were in a poor situation. We had seen them nerf so many times that most of our exotics toward the end of D1, the classic exotics, man, that were so good, were all in a poor spot, and that's something we did not like. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that they were proud of what they brought to D2. Josh Hammerick states that they created the most balanced PvP experience, but I have to question what's balanced. Just because weapons have, you know, a time to kill that's relatively the same does not mean balanced to me. Just because Uriel's Gift has relatively the same TTK values as a lot of other guns does not mean the weapon is balanced whenever it flinches 100 times harder. Antiope has the most extensive range out of all SMGs, and it has kill clips. So again, was the game balanced from a random roll perspective. I honestly think that if we would have been presented with random rolls at the beginning of D2, there would have been a good chance we would have not run into the issues that we ran into. More options in Crucible is never a bad thing. All right, at the hour and 7 minute mark, they talk about time to kill. They said that the reason time to kill cannot be changed quickly is because that would require an entire sandbox change. They mentioned that it is expensive and time consuming. So the good chance is we may never see a TTK change in Destiny 2. And when I say a TTK change, I mean overall for all of our weapons. As far as Forsaken goes, now Josh Hammerick did say this. He said that they wanted to roll out the new weapon system before also rolling out time to kill changes. So guys, you're essentially going to probably be looking at the same TTK values of most of our guns in this game, except for a couple exotics here and there, and they want to see how this new weapon system is going to affect that. To me, that spells disaster. You know, it was already hard enough to stop a shotgun in D1 with a great time to kill primary. So this is a bit worrisome to me. I would love to have seen time to kill values tested and played around with this summer, but obviously this is a major change and a major core foundation to the sandbox that cannot just be easily tweaked like we originally thought. All right, at the hour and 23 minute mark, Jon states that in time to kill being lengthier, it also gives player more opportunity to counter an attacker. Okay, so he mentions, Halo in this. He drew a lot of inspiration there. He said that Halo was a game that if a scrub snuck you from the side, the better player will clearly win if he land a good grenade and get the headshot off on the scrub. And so he likes having a lengthier time to kill to allow for more reaction. I felt like D1 allowed for that reaction as well. I didn't think the time to kill was so extreme, so quick that you couldn't react even then. The problem with what Jon's saying, and I'm a Halo fan, guys. I grew up on Halo. When you were getting snuck from the side, to be able to land an immediate frag and turn around and pop that headshot off on somebody was a beautiful feeling. But let's talk about those grenades, which can be related to our own class abilities and our own grenades in Destiny 2. So grenades in Destiny 2, they're much weaker than the frag grenades in Halo. Even the most skilled grenades that require placement, such as incendiary grenades and even stickies, they do very little damage. But not only are they weaker, but in the case of incendiary grenades, they have a much smaller blast radius. So from Jon's point of view, a well-placed frag grenade combined with a crit shot is a great way for skilled players to outplay opponents. But in Destiny 2, that formula does not exist, which is why most common used grenade in the game right now is the arc bolt grenade. It is the most reliable, it is the easiest grenade to place, and it attacks multiple enemies and damages is just as good as even our skilled grenades. So as much as I wish I can use the formula that he's talking about, and believe me, I used it a lot in Halo. I loved it. It also would destroy a team that decided to stick around each other and play off of each other. You throw a well-placed frag grenade, goodbye the entire team, man. We just do not have that system in place with Destiny 2. All right, let's move on because I talked a little too much. So this is part 2 to the podcast. There was a lot of mention of 3-tap hand cannons, and I don't know how many forum posts are put up with people begging for 3-tap hand cannons. I used hand cannons in D1, of course. I think a lot of people did. I also used a lot of other things. I used Cocytus, I used Jade Rabbit, I used Blind Perdition, I used Parthian Shot. There was a lot of guns that rewarded a skilled hand that many of us used in Trials, in regular Crucible, in Rumble, in every situation. So it's not that we want just 3-tap hand cannons back. Believe me, I don't think I can stress this enough, because when we talk about weapons with good TTKs, immediately I hear a developer say, you want 3-tap hand cannons. No, I want an assortment of options that I originally had in D1. Parthian Shot was my baby. Spare Change was my baby. I made 3 different videos on Cocytus because it was that good. We had an assortment of options, and there was times that we were limited our options, things like Clever Dragon meta and whatnot. But there was also a period of time there where we had a lot of different choices we could choose from. And so 3-tap hand cannons, it's not not the hallmark for time to kill for me. Whenever we talk time to kill values, going back to D1 levels, I'm not even thinking about Ice Luna or Palindrome. I'm thinking about Cocytus being back in my hand and landing that crispy 3 crit again. Okay, moving on to the 10-minute and 30-second mark. Jon mentions that people want a faster time to kill, so they bring up time to kill again. He mentions again that they also want 3-tap hand cannons to return so they can face down multiple opponents. He also states that it would be harder to face down multiple opponents because time to live is just as important as time to kill. Okay, I have to completely disagree with this statement. It's not true. Skilled players will always find a way to live. Now you say to yourself, shouldn't skilled players always find a way to slay? But it's difficult to slay in Destiny 2 when team engagements is the most optimal strategy. And I know where he's coming from, because like time to kill from the perspective of COD, yeah, I understand that. You know, not being able to react, having someone just sit in the corner and wait for people to just run past them and sit there and just being able to shred them, I get that. But a 0.83 second time to kill value, and it was a sweet spot. It was the sweet spot that allowed you to essentially still get out of sticky situations if you can react quick enough, but also it simultaneously allowed you to slay out. Destiny 1 has always been a game that thrived on individual performance. It was a game that was so entertaining to watch people slay out in. And the reason why people still use Anio right now, and Last Hopes, and other weapons that have that 0.9 second time to kill value, or 0.93 second time to kill values, is because it allows them to still slay out similar to what they did in D1. So those are the main points, guys. You know, they went on to talk a little more about Vicarious Visions. You know, Vicarious Visions made Huckleberry, Wormhusk, pretty much everything that was in Warmind. You know, they also mentioned that Rusted Lands was the testing ground for everything in D1, and Midtown is the testing ground for everything in D2. I don't really know how I feel about that. I hate Midtown, but you know, hey, I guess it is what it is. They also mentioned that fusion rifles are hit scan, which is worrisome considering the fact that fusion rifles are going to be moved up into our energy slots and maybe even into our kinetic slots. Fusion rifles are going to be hell to deal with once they launch with the new weapon system. And so I'm not saying to nerf them, but I will say this, that with them being hit scan and us not getting a more sped up time to kill on our weapons, it's gonna be hard to deal with that, especially if our abilities are as weak as they are now. So guys, again, you can always check out the podcast and listen to the whole thing. I mainly wanted to point these things out. These were the most important to me. You know, I didn't want to get too hung up on ranked and their rank system, since we're going to be getting that fixed anyways. They mentioned that in the TWAB last week. But I did want to talk about that because I see the direction they want to take Destiny 2 in, and I think they just need to just go back to the formula of individual performance. You know, they mentioned Overwatch a lot. I think they mentioned Rainbow Six Siege a number of times. And again, I love team-based games. I like team-based games, but that's not what sold Destiny 1. Well, fellas, that is my thoughts on the matter. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching this video, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.